Well, hello, friends. Welcome back to this episode of Test Those Breasts. I am your host, Jamie Vaughn, and today I am super stoked that I have my guest, Rory Zura, on my show. So, Rory has an interesting story. In August of 2020, during the height of the global pandemic, Rory not only had just been let go from her job, but she also became diagnosed with an aggressive form of breast cancer called triple negative. She knew this day would inevitably come through. And she had a long line of people in her family with various cancers, especially breasts. And only a few years prior, she tried to get preventative mastectomy. Unfortunately, she was denied for not meeting the criteria set forth by her insurance company. Channeling her lifelong athleticism, she knew she would have to be in her strongest, at her strongest, to take on this fight of her life. Utilizing fitness during the duration of her treatment and beyond, Rory founded her company, Foobs and Fitness, to help bridge the gap between the medical world and the fitness world. She's on a mission to educate and empower others in taking back control over their lives. Well, welcome, Rory. I am so thrilled that you're here. I have to say that I always tell people, like, I'm starstruck because, I know you think it's super funny, but seriously, when I got breast cancer in June of 2022, I finally got onto Instagram because I had started my podcast just last year. Just like actually, I started it thinking about it last February. I got on Instagram, test those breasts, and I was making all kinds of connections. And you were one of the first people that I actually made a connection with. I started watching your videos and just all of your posts, and I was really, really drawn to you for a myriad of different reasons. But then I found out more about your story. We had a lovely conversation. And I just really am happy that I'm connected with you and we can be part of, helping other breast cancer patients out there. How are you doing
Yeah,
today?
I'm doing good. It's a great day today. We finally have some nice, cool fall weather, and I'm over the heat, so I'm very happy right now.
Totally. I'm super happy without the heat too. We here in Reno, Nevada, we have a beautiful fall. Most years we have beautiful fall. And so well, good. So look, we really need to talk about
Mm.
the topic that you have for us today, because it's mind blowing, it's baffling, and it's maddening. And I'm just glad that you're here to bring awareness. Can you share a little bit more about your breast cancer journey and your whole, issue with not being able to get that mastectomy because of insurance?
Yep. And insurance, the thought of insurance is great, to make sure we're insured to be healthy, but I don't view insurance as a health requirement so much anymore. My view on that has changed because of breast cancer. And my journey started when I was in my 20s. I'm young. I don't know much about breast cancer besides seeing my family be sick, bald, getting amputations, and it's scary. So I found, lumps as I was younger, and I was always told, you have dense breasts, you're going to have cysts that come every now and then. Just, do your self exams, be aware, bring us any, issues that you might find. And I was always very vigilant. I, even before feeling on the first was a thought in my mind, I was constantly feeling my boobs, I was always feeling myself. And on that same topic, I also feel like it's important for your loved ones to understand this as well. My husband is a testicular cancer survivor as well. So he knows the world of cancer just as much as I do now. But since he had gone through cancer before me, knowing that I was constantly hyper aware of all these cysts that would come and go helped him keep me in check. I'd find cysts and I'd make him feel it, and I'd be like, oh my God, do you remember this one? Because your memory is better than mine. And it would come and go, and he would remind me, you're getting your period soon, see how things go. And up until 2020, he was always right. But when I got let go of my job and I was going on all these job interviews, I was in the shower, found that lump, and I freaked out because we're in the middle of a pandemic. Immediately went to him and he's like, "You're getting your period soon. Don't worry. See if it goes away." And for the first time in my life, it did not go away. So that's when I knew something was wrong. I could kind of feel it in my core. Um, and all I could hear in my head was, "You knew this day was coming. You knew this day was coming." And at that point, I wish I would have been more vigilant on protesting the insurance companies and being more advocate of myself, because I didn't know any better back then. And I want people to understand it doesn't matter how old you are, your doctors are working with you. They need to have open communication. And unfortunately, the world that we're in the United States, it does come down to insurance companies, but still you can fight things, you can protest, you can do something if you want it. And I wish I would have known that back then. Um, but leading up to where we were in the pandemic, the day before my second wedding anniversary is when I got the call from my gynecologist that I had been diagnosed officially with triple negative breast cancer. And like I tell people my journey started then, but really it started in my 20s when all of this was happening to me. And I just started cackling, like Joker style, creepy, laughing. Like I'm pretty sure my doctor thought I had a psychotic break. Um, but I just kept telling him, like, I told you, like, this was going to happen. I knew this was going to happen. I knew this day was going to come. What do I need to do now? Because now I don't need to deal with it.
Yeah, those insurance companies, and you're right, because I just got finished fighting with a bunch of other advocates about the deep flap surgery with CMS. And so I know the power of the people and the power of our voices
Yep.
do work. And so even though you have to look back and think to yourself, gosh, I wish I would have been able to advocate for myself a lot more and better back during that time period. Normally in your 20s, you're not thinking about any of these things. You're thinking about, the next good time you're going to have with your friends and
Yep.
the next boy or whatever it is. That's what you're thinking. And so so bringing this awareness to younger women now is so important. And I have met quite a few ladies in the last year who were really young when they got, and I'm 50. I just turned 56 yesterday. So
Oh,
um well, thank you. And so yeah, so I was blown away with some of the women that I have run across that were in their 20s and 30s, and all of the things they have another myriad of issues that they go through, you all go through versus what we go through. And but being able to advocate yourself for yourself is not something we typically learn to do until you're older, like you're older and wiser, and you're just like, yeah, I can speak up, and I will tell you exactly what I want with my body. I will tell you what you are going to do for me. And sometimes we have to learn to get that voice. So
yep.
thank you for being there on behalf of all of the other women that this may be happening to. So then walk us through your treatments. Walk us through what came after that.
So after my doctor and I kind of calmed me down a little bit, we had to decide where I was going to get treated. This again is in the middle of a global pandemic. So I was barely able to get in to see my gynecologist. How am I going to be treated during a pandemic with low blood count, white blood counts? My doctor was in Manhattan. I really don't want to be schlepping back and forth from Long Island into Manhattan on a train or in a car in global pandemic. That just didn't seem safe to me. So I had to go and interview all of these different medical teams. So I did end up interviewing a team in the city, and then I found my treatment center, which was actually around the block from me. I didn't know that they had a satellite treatment center by me. So I actually ended up falling in love with my oncologist and set up a plan of action. And he brought to me, we're going to go through neoadjuvant chemotherapy. You're going to do 4 rounds of AC 4 rounds of Taxol. And my biggest thing was, why don't you, I want these off. Like, I wanted these off years ago. Can you please cut them off? And every doctor is different. Every body is different. I agreed to go with the neoadjuvant chemotherapy because of the fact that I wanted to know if I got a complete pathological response. I wanted to be able to say the chemo didn't work. These cut them off now. And now what else do I need to do? And I never wanted that what if component. And that's just me. And that's a huge difference from when I was trying to advocate for getting my mastectomy as soon as possible to get them off. I kind of took a back seat on it, and I was like, no, you know what? I want to do treatment first. Let's wait, see how things go, and then do the surgery after. So that was a great thing that me and my doctor both worked on. He explained to me both options, doing surgery first, then chemotherapy, or chemotherapy first and then surgery. And I got to choose the path that I wanted. And that goes back to my point in saying these doctors work with you. They shouldn't be dictating how you're doing your treatment. You should be the end all be all and making the decisions on what you do that's best for you, because only you have to live the rest of your life in your body. These doctors, once you get to that 6-month or post-treatment, they just see you for these checkups. They're not going to have to live the day-to-day. Only you are. So I'm a really big advocate of that. Before, though, I had started treatment because I was quote unquote so young and I don't have any kids. I had to go through fertility preservation. So I kind of delayed my treatment a little bit. I went and found a really renowned fertility specialist here in New York. I went through a really quick egg retrieval, embryo freezing, and then I was due to start chemotherapy like the day after my egg retrieval. And again, I took a back seat and I was like, you just pumped me through all of these estrogen, progesterone, like all of these hormones, and now you're going to completely cut them off and put me in menopause. You need to give me a little bit so I can kind of like process everything that's going on. And he had urged me, don't wait too long. It is aggressive. We don't want to wait too long. And I said, I'm just asking for a couple of days. I just want to go through the retrieval, spend a weekend with my husband, my dogs, away, calm myself, and really prepare myself for this fight. And he agreed. So that's what we did. And I was so thankful for that. And I went into my 4 rounds of AC. I did dose dense. And then I went into Taxol, 4 rounds dose dense. And by the 3rd one, my liver started to not like the Taxol. So we had to push my last one a little bit. And I finished in January of 2021. I finally got my double mastectomy, which I was so happy for. But during my mastectomy, they do the sentinel node biopsy, and then they send the node biopsy out for full pathology. So the node biopsy, I guess like the rapid, if you want to kind of compare or whatever, came back fine. I was totally fine. So they put my expanders in, sewed me up, threw me to the recovery room, woke up, and felt amazing. And a week later is when my doctor called me and she's like, the full pathology came back to show that you've got micromets in one of your lymph nodes. So time to go back to the OR. And I was like,
Damn it.
no.
Yeah.
So
Wow. That must,
that was
and
intense.
of course, you're like, that's like another complete blow to your world, right? Oh
Mm-hmm.
gosh.
Yep.
What was
So,
your so what were some of the complications you had? So you found out that it had gone to one of your nodes.
mhm.
What did they do after that? What kind of complications, if any, did you have even with your mastectomy and did you you did get reconstructed?
Yep.
What kind of complications did you have?
So I actually didn't have any complications from, no, that's a lie. That is a bold-faced lie. I retract the previous statement. I had a couple complications. So throughout treatment, we uncovered that I have a Chiari malformation. So I have a Chiari malformation 1, which is basically my brain is too big for my skull. So what happens with the Chiari malformation is the base of my skull is very small. So when my brain swells, like from dehydration, being too hungover, those kinds of things. I get severe migraines because my brain stem is trying to push into my spinal cord. And as many of the people who are listening may know, chemotherapy severely dehydrates you. And that was the one thing that I kept constantly battling. Even before chemotherapy, I have an absorption issue. And I could never figure out kind of my balance. And so it kind of really unbalanced myself when I went through chemotherapy. But luckily, my team was all over it. We fixed my symptoms and monitored the Chiari malformation. So I've been stable with that, which is great. So that was one issue that wasn't really anything that I could do about it. It was an underlying issue. The second issue was during my mastectomy, when I was healing, I developed cording. And many people don't know what cording is. It's not something that your surgeons tend to talk about all that much. And I think that they need to start talking about that. Because everyone, when they get a mastectomy or even a lumpectomy, when they go through surgery, they're cutting through the nerves, and there's always that chance that your muscles can seize up, and the limited motion of our arms is generally warranted because we're not able to move our arms. But that significance of the cording is something that many people are not aware of, and they just kind of assume that this is part of the, recoup process, and it's not supposed to be. So that was one bout that I had an issue with, and that happened in between my finding out I needed to go for another surgery. So I'm like, cool. So now I'm dealing with cording. I got to go in for another surgery. I just broke my cords. What's going to happen with this second surgery? They got to go into that same spot. Am I going to get cording again? So that was something that was on my mind. But the more important thing that was on my mind was the lymphedema. And if you go on Google and you Google lymphedema, you're going to see trunk limbs. You're going to see the worst of the absolute worst. And that's why we always say, don't go on Dr. Google. Please don't go on Dr. Google.
Good advice.
So I immediately, I'm an athlete. I've worked out all of my life, pretty much all my adult life. And seeing Dr. Google and those images, huge PTSD. I was like, oh my God, this is what's going to happen to me if I take my lymph nodes out? No, I'm not taking my lymph nodes out. Absolutely not. So I had approached my surgeons and I had said, look, I'll do the surgery, but I want to talk to a lymphedema therapist before I go onto the knife again. And I had to fight them to do that. So normally with a lymphedema therapist, because there's few and far between for lymphedema therapists, they don't see patients prior to developing lymphedema. That doesn't sit okay with me. I was already told no to my preventative mastectomy, and I was being told no again to try and prevent lymphedema. And at that point, I had learned from my mistakes, and I said, I'm not having the surgery until I talk to a lymphedema therapist. Ball's in your court. You do this. This is my decision. So if you want me to have the surgery, if you think it's in my best interest, put me in touch with a lymphedema therapist. So I finally did, and I'm so happy I did because they took my baseline measurements from my arm so I could compare the two arms. I could compare my pre-surgery to my post-surgery if any swelling were to occur. They showed me massage techniques. They showed me signs and symptoms to look out for, and really made me understand that the Google was an extreme, like an unrealistic approach for me in my situation. So that really helped me to kind of then go, okay, now I'm ready for part two. Like I'm ready to get back into battle. So that's when I went in for the surgery, and then I had to continue on to more active treatment.
So let me ask you something. You had the wherewithal to ask about a lymphedema therapist. So when I went to New Orleans to get my breast surgery, there is a lymphedema therapist there. I had no idea what lymphedema was, and all of the information that was coming at me was all in hindsight really good information, and she was amazing, and she even came to me after my surgery, did the massage and all that. But I really didn't understand any of it because I just never heard of it. And so you had the wherewithal to understand. How did you get to that point? Who told you? Like, I mean, because you didn't just all of a sudden think, oh, well, something about your lymph nodes. You had somebody who must have been a good mentor to you, or somebody who mentioned it to you for you to understand that. Is that a
Yes.
fair assessment?
So there's a whole myriad of people and things, really. My best friend at the time, and she still is, I shouldn't say at the time, but my best friend is in the medical field. She's an NP, she deals with pediatrics, but a lot of the things that we talk about is medical when it came to my treatment. She lived in California, I lived in New York, so while I was going through treatment, she couldn't be here for me in one of the toughest times of my life, especially because we were in a pandemic. So we were constantly bouncing each other off, or what are you working out today? Oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. She was my workout buddy. Hey, I was on Google, I found these images of, like, I Googled breast cancer and then lymphedema showed up and all this. And so we bounced off of things. There are pamphlets that the doctors were giving me when I got my surgery, like a side effect could be lymphedema. So of course I'm like, what's lymphedema? Google, Google, Google. I didn't want to read the pamphlets because we've got a lot of information that's just like thrown at us. And then the last thing I want to do is read like a packet that's like 6 inches thick. And I'm like, I don't understand a word that's going on in here. But, I'm looking through things. My husband's looking through things. I had a lot of people's eyes and ears, and being in support groups too. The one good thing about, I keep mentioning the pandemic, but in hindsight, I don't think I would have been as knowledgeable if it weren't for the pandemic, because I would have been distracted with work. I would have been doing everything and anything to keep my mind off of treatment. Whereas during the pandemic, I'm forced to stay in my house. I'm forced to really deal with these emotions and have nothing but time on my hands. So I joined Facebook groups, I joined Instagram groups, and the community really helped me learn from what other people were dealing with. And that's, the great thing about this community is we're a club that no one wants to join, but we're the best people because we help each other and we want each other to learn from what we've learned and pass that on, so that one day we don't need to learn anything because we all are on the same page.
Yes, I call it the sisterhood of all sisterhoods.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
it
The
is so
sorority
true
that you never
because
wanted to join.
yeah, and we are all like I have been met with such amazing women who are so open to sharing and helping and trying to make sure that they are shortening the learning curve for other patients. And that's exactly what I mean for this podcast was all about. It kind of was a sort of a healing mechanism
Mm-hmm.
that I started because I was like, I had nothing. I had just retired from my job. And then 1 week later found out I had breast cancer. So everything was cut off that I was doing before. And I had all these other plans that got completely put on hold. And at some point after my surgery, I was like, what the fuck am I going to do with my life? Like, I don't even have any significance. I don't have any kind of anything. And that's when I was like, you know what? I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to interview as many people as I possibly can to help the next person who gets that breast cancer, because it is freaking overwhelming. And you
Yep.
talk about packets. Like when I first went to and so my situation was I got the breast cancer. I was given a surgeon and an oncologist. I didn't have the wherewithal or the understanding about, oh, do I have choices, and things like that. Now I am an advocate for myself. I listen to my body and I've learned how to be a better advocate for myself during this situation. And good for you for saying, no, I'm not going to do this until you give me what I want.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that is really important for women to do is to find their voice. And usually we find our voice when we've had the experience from before of being pushed around and told what we can and cannot do.
Yep.
And so my new thing is that don't tell me that I can't do it. Tell me how I can do it.
Yep.
And so it's so important for women out there to be able to find that voice. So thank you for that. Um, so your survivorship, how has your family, and you kind of talked a little bit about your best friend, and that's so amazing that she was there for you. I'm assuming it's a she. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I know people who have best friends that are men and whatever, but your best friend was there for you and you got to bounce things off of her and learn different things. And then of course you have your support system with your husband who also has experience with cancer. So he gets it. He gets the, oh my God, I got something in my body that's killing me or trying to
Mm-hmm.
kill me. So, how has the rest of your family been involved in your journey through your survivorship?
Oh, they are very involved. My sister in particular, her and my best friend, I actually put them in a Facebook group chat, and it's called All Boobs Matter. It's like my little thing with them because I'm like, we all have different boobs, whatever, but like we're all hyper aware, the three of us, of our bodies, and we advocate for ourselves. And my sister is my little sister. So of course, once I got diagnosed, I'm like, can you please make sure that you are checking yourself? Like I don't carry any genetic mutations. I don't know if you do, like our family, I don't really know what's going on with that, but just please like make sure that we're talking to each other about stuff. So she has actually been a very critical part in my company as well. The two of them are kind of my editors. They're both having a medical background. My sister is in more of like neurobiology. She does like samples and things like that. She has a very analytical brain. And then you have my best friend. So those are the two people who understand me in and out, have medical backgrounds, support me, want to help, and really believe in Foobs and Fitness. So they've been instrumental in my survivorship, in my diagnosis, and everything. My mother is even more so. So she is a lymphoma survivor. She became a 2-time lymphoma survivor around the same time I got diagnosed with breast cancer. So that was a hit and a half. Because my mom was only first diagnosed when I was like 16. I was in high school. So to hear it come back after all this time, and then I'm battling breast cancer at the same time is like, fuck.
Like somebody's setting you up. What the heck?
Like,
Yeah.
are you on vacation? What are you doing? Like, come back. But I'm all about mindset. And yes, it is the absolute shittiest feeling in the world. But at the same time, she lived in Arizona, I lived in New York, and we were each other's support system. She started treatment after I did. She was on more of a wait and watch. So when she did finally start treatment, she was bitching and moaning, and I was like, Mom, listen to me. Who better to battle cancer than your daughter? And she's like, I could think of 1,000 other people. I'm like, Mom, no, listen to me. Listen to the words that are coming out of my mouth. Who better than to go through this journey with you than your own daughter, your own flesh and blood, to come out the other side and say, I kicked cancer's ass with? Because I can't think of anyone better. Maybe your other children, but
Yeah.
like your daughter's going through this with you. So we have each other to push each other and be there and cry. And really, you and I share the same blood. We share the same everything. So we get to say that we survived cancer together, and not any relationship can trump that. So that kind of helped her change her mindset too. And now she's actually one of my clients.
Oh, very nice. How old is your mom?
My mom is 63, 64.
So yeah, I just sometimes our young daughters are very wise, and we get a lot of information from them. So thank you for talking to your mom about that because that was probably the best thing for her. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes even as adults, we need someone even who is younger to give us that jolt of positivity and it's just a different way of looking at it.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's awesome. And now she's one of your clients. I love it. So that what other kind of outside support, like what kind of what other kind of outside support did you find to be super helpful that maybe we can share with newly diagnosed people who are coming into the sisterhood?
The communities are going to be your best friends. Sometimes they're a little intimidating. I'm not going to lie. I was probably a fly on the wall for a bunch of them in the beginning. But for me, my triple negative breast cancer, I had my TNBC thrivers. That was my group that understood me. We didn't know anyone through a hole in the wall. We're talking to people virtually. But they were my go-to. As much as, my husband who had cancer understood what I was going through, he didn't really understand. As much as my mom was going through treatment with me, she didn't really understand. Cancer is not just cancer, it's a specific type of cancer. So understanding that there was another 33-year-old woman out there who was also an athlete that was, struggling with the same things that I was struggling with was comforting. And those groups really helped me in a lot of my darkest times that none of my friends or family could have helped me with.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I definitely found the communities that were most helpful to me. I was told at the beginning, like you can get into some of these Facebook private groups and things like that, and you might find that some of them aren't as helpful as
Mm-hmm.
others. One of my friends told me that she got into a couple and decided to get right back out of there and kind of look into other things because it was so doom and gloom that it was just bringing her down big time. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a difference between being doom and gloom and asking for advice on how to deal with things, that are going wrong, and just maybe even just saying, I'm just having a real hard day today. How do
Yeah.
you all get through this? Um, and I did find that I did jump into a couple of support groups and jump right back out. And
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you that the community that I have found most helpful is just being on Instagram
Yep.
and reaching out and chit chatting with folks like you. And it's just been amazing. And then I was introduced to one support group in particular here, and it's all about survivorship. Anyone who has been touched by cancer and survivorship, and you making those connections with people who might have something in common with you personally. And then, of course, the kind of surgery I had, there is a private Facebook group for
Yep.
the New Orleans crew. And that's been very, very helpful to me as well. So yeah, thanks for that. Um, so can you talk a little bit more about your business, your Foobs and Fitness?
Foobs and Fitness. Well, my baby, as I call her, she was born at the time of when I was told I needed that next surgery because I was so tired of just being told that I can't do something. And I knew other people out there were dealing with the same thing. I just happened to be a bitch about things. And I want what I want. And I have a voice and I particularly don't really care what other people think about me. So I wanted to teach people that they can find their voice. It may not be in the same tone as me, it may not be in the same way as me, but like you were saying, you have a voice, you will find it. You may not find it in the same way that I found it, but you'll find it. So I started Foobs and Fitness as my goal to myself because I had already had anticipations of wanting to go back to school because I had worked out all through ACT. And besides the Chiari, I never got sick. I never threw up. I never had those quintessential, chemo side effects. I was, tired, but I never lifted as heavy as I did during treatment than prior to. So the fact that I did that was mind blowing. And I was like, there's something there. And the fact that my oncologist told me that there are so many studies about how exercise reduces risk, reoccurrence, it reduces treatment side effects. I'm like, why this should be on a billboard? Like, why is this not like you're telling me that I have a chance to not experience those side effects by moving my body? Okay, give me, give me all of it. So I had promised myself that after I healed from my mastectomy, I would go back to school, and I did not expect to have to go through more treatment. So I kept that promise to myself. I created Foobs and Fitness to do social media while I went back to school. So I was going through 25 rounds of radiation, 6 months of oral chemo, studying to be a personal trainer, graduated from being a personal trainer, went back to school again to study oncology and exercise with the Cancer Exercise Training Institute, became a certified exercise specialist, then went back again to school to become a women's fitness specialist. So all through treatment, I was still studying, doing all of these things and using myself as a guinea pig, because what I'm learning through all of these modalities, I'm able to apply while I'm still in treatment. So what can I do during radiation? What can I do with this oral chemo? I obviously couldn't do it through IV chemo, but I had already known what I had done previously. So what better way than to teach than to use myself? And then I was using everything on social media to be like, this is what worked for me. I want you guys to understand this is where we're coming to. And finally, when I graduated in November of 2021, from my oral chemo, I was done with treatment. I was declared no evidence of disease. And that's when I officially formed my LLC. And I started taking clients. When I got cleared from my exchange surgery, I was like, all right, I can start lifting weights. Cool. Who wants to join me? And I got my first client, and it's been an uphill battle with everyone, and seeing them go from surgery to treatment and this and that, and seeing my client who's been with me the longest, that first client that I've had is still with me to this day. And I have seen her go through surgery, radiation, deep flap, all different forms of treatment. And now I see her being able to lift her arm above her head again. She's using weights. She's walking around with no problem. She's a little tired because she's on hormone stuff, but seeing how she started with me to where she is now is just absolutely priceless.
Yeah. So you essentially reinvented yourself
Mm-hmm.
because of cancer, because to remind my audience, you had lost your job
Mm-hmm.
during the pandemic, and then you got this breast cancer. So your whole journey just sort of brought you to where you are today, and a very powerful force in helping other patients. And if they're still with you today, that's a testimony to who you are. And
Mm-hmm.
boy, we're lucky to have you. Um, what is one big piece of advice that you would give? And I almost feel like I know what you're going to say, but I don't know.
What do you
Maybe,
think I'm going to
maybe
say?
there's more. What is one big piece of advice you would give to someone who has just been diagnosed with breast cancer? What would you say to them?
You are the CEO of your body. End of story. I'm all about advocacy. You know what is best for you. You run your own company. That company is your body. So listen to what your body is telling you. You need to understand that your body speaks a language, and not all of us understand how to interpret that language. The way you speak to it matters. Your body is your company. So run it the way that you would want it to be ran.
I like it. I knew it was going to have something to do with advocacy. You
Mm-hmm.
just said it so eloquently, and I love it. I like that. You are the CEO of your body. You were talking about deciding on what route you're going to go with your body, and that is one reoccurring theme I've been hearing quite a bit, is this whole idea of shared decision making.
Mm-hmm.
And, shared decision making is not a new concept. When I was talking to Dr. Manas Crisopolo, I don't know, about a month and a half ago, he was talking about how this is not new. This is a term that is from the 80s,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just that we're all of the people during the 80s and before are so used to this patriarchal type medical system, and where the doctor says, oh yeah, this is wrong with you, we're going to do this and this, and you're like, yes doctor, okay. And that's just not how it is anymore. And I mean, there are a lot of physicians out there who still do have that mentality. We just have to retrain them. And we do have to take, you know, control over the decisions that are going to be made for our bodies. And so when a doctor is able to say, "Hey, Rory, um, these are the two things that can be options for you. We don't really have that ability to do this one here, but here's where you can do that. And here are the pros and the cons, and here are the blah blah blah." And when you have that kind of conversation with your patients, then the patient in turn becomes more compliant, and I mean that in a positive way,
Yeah.
that they are making the decision and they feel more at ease and less anxious about going into what they're going to be doing. And I just feel that we as patients need to be able to use our voice to make sure that doctors are doing that. Like, how can tell me how I can do this,
Yep.
even though this is not an option in my own town. How can I do it? Where can I go? And you need to support me, because that's it. I mean, that you are the CEO of your own body. Right.
Mhm.
I want to say something. You have a wonderful painting in your
Oh,
background. You have it's like this phoenix, right? And
yep.
it's got fire. So that was my theme throughout my whole cancer journey, is Phoenix catching fire.
Yep.
And right when I was diagnosed, my husband and I were at this chalk art little festival thing. And I saw this beautiful mirror, like this beautiful artwork all made in chalk, and it was Phoenix catching fire. And that was really what my spirit, whatever you would call it, animal, that was fighting the cancer inside my body. And
Mhm.
I've just always held on to that. And I actually got a tattoo commissioned. Now, let me ask you about this, Rory. Okay. Did you have lymph nodes removed over there?
Nope.
Okay. So I had three that were
Mhm.
removed from my left arm, and then one on the other one. And I'm told I can't get a tattoo at all
Nope.
in any of those
Especially
arms,
not red.
especially not
Mhm.
red.
Mhm.
Well, I didn't even hear that part.
Mhm.
My lymphedema therapist told me that if I'm gonna do it on the right arm, because it's only one lymph node and not the left one. But that's not true, right? You shouldn't do it at all. Well, that really sucks.
Also, for all the viewers, I always err on the side of caution when it comes to lymphedema because it is a lifelong
Yeah,
diagnosis and it is a flare up. It will come and go as long as you catch it at early stages. To me, it was not worth it to do it on the side that I had the lymph nodes taken on. And I try and tell people it's your body. You
yeah,
know, you could do whatever you want. As long as you understand the risks versus the rewards, you make the decision that's best for you. I know plenty of people who have had one lymph node taken out, they went and got a tattoo, and they were fine. Totally fine. For me, because it was a sleeve that I was doing, I was like, that's a lot. I'm not going to do it on that side. I'll do it on this side. So it also depends on the size. If you're looking to do like a little phoenix, like on like a small one, maybe it won't be as bad. But you don't know what's going to trigger the lymphedema. Anything can trigger lymphedema. Literally anything. So it's up to you.
yeah. I could do it somewhere else on my body. I just can't do it in that quadrant, that area of my body.
You
Yeah,
could do it like on the back.
I wanted to do it over here because on the left side, because the cancer was in the left breast, and it has really cute little breasts on it too that the person put
Mm-hmm.
on there. It was really cool. I'll figure it out. But I love your sleeve. And I love the art. I love the artwork in the background. And mine, it just reminds me of my, I'll have to send you
Yeah, I want
the
to see
artwork.
it.
It's really cool. Okay, so you have some resources that you want to share with us that I will have in the show notes as well. I do have
Mm-hmm.
how to email you. I will also put your Instagram handle on there as well. so people
Cool.
can follow you. And then what other resources do you have in this Google document?
So the big one that we've touched on, and this is a good segment with the tattoos, is a lymphedema drainage exercise program. So this is something that the Cancer Exercise Training Institute has bestowed upon, students. I've incorporated this into my own daily routine, and it is something that I have my clients do every day, especially before being active. I have been really good with my lymphedema. It's made me more body aware. I haven't had those trunk symptoms, which I'm very thankful for. And even if you don't have cancer, I have plenty of people who I give this lymphedema drainage exercise routine to, because the lymphatic system to begin with is just a very understudied portion of our bodies. And that's sad because
Yeah.
it's a pretty important one, if you ask me. Think of your lymphatic system as like the coffee filters of your body. It's their job to pick up the gunk and to notify your body of something going wrong. So you want to keep the lymphatic system running, as like a well-oiled machine. So this exercise program helps do that. It teaches you deep breathing. There's some stretching exercises there. There's some strengthening, little isometric presses. And it's a really great way that I've found to try and get people who have just had their surgeries moving again. They're all very gentle movements. You can do these throughout treatment too, even if you haven't had surgery. It's just a really good routine, and I do them every morning.
Okay. Well, I'm going to do them. And I actually do massage my arm. Like I do take
Mhm.
the advice of two different lymphedema therapists that I have spoken to. I actually even interviewed one of them in our area at an earlier episode, early on in the production of the podcast. And she's very, very knowledgeable, very
Mm.
sweet, and I know that it's really hard for her to tell people you can't get a tattoo, you can't sit in the hot tub to when it, and I had just gotten a hot tub, so I'm real careful about where, sitting in there and how often and where I sit into it up to, and stuff like that.
Mhm. And that's
Um,
not to say, like, in the future, things won't change. The one thing that because I know everybody listening to this, like, lymphedema is scary AF. Like, it's scary. We've already been through this thing, and the biggest thing that you need to know with lymphedema is that you can conquer anything as long as you take your time. Your body tends to flare up with this reaction because it's something new. So, like, you know, conditioning your body to certain circumstances slowly over time is what helps keep lymphedema at bay.
okay. Very good advice. Well, this has been an incredibly enlightening conversation.
Yes.
When we talked before, I'd learned so much more about you, and now I feel like I know you even better, and I thoroughly enjoy following your page. And I know you're
Same.
helping our friend Luann with the whole Brava Art Day, and by the time this airs, Brava Art or Broad Day, which is breast reconstruction awareness, which is
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow,
Yep.
right? It's the 18th of October. But I know you're helping with that, and you're just really, out there in the community helping. I see you everywhere.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I gotta have this girl on my show, man.
Does she
Plus,
sit down? Does she sleep?
yeah, no kidding. Because our minds are always going. It's like, oh my God, how can I help the next person? How can I, I
Mm-hmm.
know I feel like you and I probably are a lot alike in that way. And
Very much
I
so.
also told you at the beginning, it was like, I love your haircut. Right before I lost my hair, I actually cut my hair much like that because I thought it was so badass and cool looking. And then I had it for like a week and then it fell out.
Yep.
Well, it started falling out and then my husband shaved it and everything. And I've seen such really cute pictures of you all through your treatment, and you've also got a really cute head and everything, and so you're just you're clearly a beautiful person, and I just thoroughly
Oh,
appreciate your being on my show. And I just hope that to my audience, go check out Rory's Instagram page, and you can reach out to her via email. She's got some wonderful resources. So if you are someone who has just been diagnosed, or you know somebody who's just been diagnosed, please send them Rory's way. Have them, have them listen to my podcast, have them look at all of Rory's stuff. And because that community is incredibly helpful. And again, I just appreciate your being on here. And is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up here?
No, I'm absolutely honored, and I feel like we're breasties, but we've never met, and I feel like I have my breasty little clique, and I
Yes.
love them so 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 much.
Me too. I'm totally with you, sister. And so thank you again. And to my audience, thank you for joining us. And we will see you on the next episode of Test Those Breasts. Bye for now.